Close this session off. Well, thanks for showing up. And again, it's not mandatory. And what I'm hoping tonight is kind of talk to everyone about the course, get them introduced to Illustrator, which the course is about, using Adobe Illustrator. So I think hopefully you got a chance to look at the video talking about e-college and what's in here and due dates that are all labeled there. There. So going into Learning Plan 1, click on Activities as where you would start. So because it is an online course, you have to take the lead yourself, and I would start with the learning plan. Look at the, I'll go back one, look at what all the competencies that we're shooting for, the competencies of what we want you to learn. So utilizing the symbol tool to create a composition, output various documents from Illustrator. So that's what you want to look for. And then the criteria shows, this is kind of repeats what's in the scoring guide. And these are the objectives that you want to learn. So every learning plan will have that, a little start from there. So because you're on your own, I would start there, look at what you're trying to accomplish in each learning plan, go to the activities. This first learning plan 1, they want you to just get familiar with e-college with this first bit, and then getting into what is Illustrator and the uses for Illustrator. Illustrator is a vector-based program. So if anyone's worked with Photoshop, that's raster art. It's based on pixels. Each, you zoom in and you see all the different pixels that makes up your images in Photoshop, your pixel-based raster art program. Illustrator, being vector art, is made up of, the artwork is created with points and lines, or paths as they call them in Illustrator, and it's mathematically configured to create your artwork. So we deal with paths and shapes and strokes to create artwork. And the good thing about it, as far as an artist and looking at it from our point of view, you could scale artwork and not lose quality. So when you scale up raster art, it degrades, it gets fuzzy, the pixels don't scale up nice. They scale down better than they scale up in raster art. But with vector art, you can scale it up and down for the most part and keep it, not lose any quality. Sometimes with the strokes, you got to be careful on certain ones, but for the most part, you keep good clarity and scaling up. So that's a good opportunity for artists, is to get involved in working with companies, and if we get proficient at converting raster art to vector art, that's going to be a good trait to have, an employable trait. People that can do that well, that it can take something that's created in vector art and make it look the exact same that it's created in raster art and make it look the exact same in vector art, then that's going to be you'd be in good demand if you could do that well. So it's using technical drawings, AutoCAD and the different CAD computer-based programs are vector-based, and they scale up. When you use fonts and type tools in Photoshop, that's vector-based, so you can scale fonts up and down. And then you always have the choice to rasterize them, but you can they start off as vector art. So it is used a lot for print, for that one reason, that when you create logos and different elements, that it can be scaled. You can put it on a business card, you can put it on the side of a bus, depending on where you want to use it. So that's the advantages of working in the vector art. It draws a little different than drawing with pixels. So if you never used vector art before, it might be a little different, and some people find it harder to get used to. But I think once you get going with it, you feel comfortable with it, and you get nice clean images, and you'll enjoy working with the program. So yeah, I think that was number 5. And looking at number 6, Brooke Nunn's Life in Vector. She shows where she could do some more high-end artwork with the vector. So getting nice shades, gradients and shadows in her artwork. And it's a little trickier than just taking your vector and then doing it in raster art. You can just shade things like that, but you have to work it a little different to get these to accomplish the same thing in vector art. But it is possible. So some of these, if we scroll over, you can see the line work with the different paths that create the artwork. So these are just for examples to show you some examples of what you could do with vector art. Vector art does tend to have more of a graphic feel. That's the strong point, but you can get that more realistic look with the shadings and things. But as you can see in these images here, even has more of a graphic. The shapes are a little more defined than if it was naturally painted or a photograph. But those are there. So that's in that's the Brook one. And there's some more examples there. So what I'm going to do here is just kind of look. I did teach this course in class this fall, so I'm kind of going through it as if I was teaching in class. A little different, not seeing the feedback of the students, but we'll work through that. So research interesting links tutorial related to the LP, post links to the discussion, and some of the students have already done that, and I hope you can do that also. But in the discussion, there actually are some good links that the students have found already. So Zach and Gail and Amy, if you look at those, there's so much things that are out there now on the internet. We use the lynda.com because we know what's there and we know what they're going to be teaching you to use it as a guide. But a lot of this stuff, some of the lynda.com videos can be found out there. You're not going to get the whole course on YouTube unless you do a lot of research, I guess. But you could find a lot of the different subject matter out there other than the lynda.com. And that's what the students were doing here. So that's what I hope you can do, is just search out there and find some other topics and share that with the class. Okay, so looking at getting started with Illustrator, I'll open that up in a second. But since I'm here, I'm just going to stay here with these two, lynda.com. I did post in, the course was originally written as CS5, so we had the CS5 essential training with Morty Golding initially, and he taught it very well. And then we moved into CS6, and they updated their CS6 on lynda.com. A lot of the tools are the same. There's a few newer things in CS6, so I am going to point you to the CS6, but between either of these, you'll get a lot of good information from what we're working with in this course. And on that note, if you do have a lynda.com subscription, you could use anything that's on the lynda.com site. So there are some more advanced things. You can search out anything that's not suggested here in our activities, where I do suggest watching these chapters. You could watch whatever you want as long as you have your lynda.com subscription. So, the only thing is you don't have enough time to watch it all. But, take advantage of that if you can, and try to take in as much as you can in the lynda.com. But first off, going with the Illustrator CS6 essential training, getting started with Illustrator. I'm going to show you some main things to look for as you're getting started, but I'm not going to go in depth as I do in the videos right now in this evening session. I want to point you in the direction of these videos. Take the time to watch it. I know I've heard from students that, videos are boring. It could be a book. We chose to go with the videos. I think they're very thorough, and you can look them, you can rewind them and look at them and take your notes as if you're reading a book, and do the best you can that way. So take the time to go through at least these first 3 chapters of CS6, and then I just added this one in here, chapters 1 through 4 in CS5. Either one of those, you don't need to do them both. You'll get pretty much the same information. It's just given to you a different way. So that's things to think about getting started with Illustrator. I will just point out in Zachary's discussion post, there was a Terry White, and it's about a 45-minute long video getting started with Illustrator. So if you haven't used Illustrator, I'll just jump there real quick and then get going. Zach's one here. This YouTube one. This first one is Terry White, I think his name is. Let me see. Yeah, Terry White. And that's a good one. If you've never used Illustrator before, he explains it different than the other two. So there's plenty of information out there to do it. I did point out how to get to the different things. So Illustrator CS5, if you wanted to find Illustrator CS6 Essential Training, I just copy and paste that into Find the Course. Just type in CS6. And, so now you have the CS6 Essential Training. So these are there. Take advantage of those. Getting started, working with documents, and selecting and transforming objects. So, and then I'll do a little bit of that in a minute here. So between the CS5 and the CS6, you should be doing all right. Keep going. So, all right. So that's that part. Let me just move on to opening up Illustrator. I've had it open already. Let me close this just to start from new. So if you once you open Illustrator, to open a file, I'm going to give us a suggestion of file size to work at. And most of the time, Illustrator can be used, and I'll show you that in a second here. So if I go to open this, I'll go File, New. So I'm going to open a new file. And you can always see what the quick keys are. They're always listed on the right-hand side here. So that's, I'm working on a Mac. If it's a Mac, it's Command N. If it's a PC, it's Control N. So whatever you want, the new there. And you'll always get this dialog box. Now you can name it here. I'll just call it Test 01. When you name it there, it's not saving it anywhere. It's just giving you a starting name. I usually don't name it here. I usually wait till I'm ready to save it, but you can name it right there. The next step is we're in a profile. You can set a profile. So they do have some basic profiles in there. If you're going to work with print, it's going to make us in CMYK mode for the print, a higher PPI, pixels per inch, 300 pixels per inch, and then it's given us this letter default size in points. I'm going to be looking at this mostly that we're going to be doing stuff for screen work. So we're going to work pretty much in the RGB mode, but there's no right or wrong. It's just a matter of what you're thinking about where your final product's going to end up. So if you are doing something for print, you may want to work in this CMYK mode, or if you think whatever you're creating is always just going to exist on a screen, like a computer screen, television screen, video, then you can stay in the RGB mode. So that's going to be a choice, but they do have the different choices here. So for the web mode, it's going to give us RGB with a 72 PPI. We're reading in pixels, giving us the size of 960, 560 size. We're looking for devices. What do we got? RGB, so different computer screen devices. Film and video, if you're working in film and video, it does work nice. You can have different choices of the different video formats that you would work in, and it will give us our screen safe mode. So these are nice if you're going to be doing video work, to have these choices to look into. I teach primarily in interactive media design, so we do a lot of video work. So looking at this is a good thing for the students to have that option. Basic RGB, that's a good one in there. What I like to do when I'm just starting a file and I kind of think things are going to screen, I'm going to just set my custom thing. So if I start with basic RGB, I'm going to go with the 800 by 600 size. To me, that's just a good size to work in. Again, there's no right or wrong, but just what I like to work in. And for our assignments, I think most of them I ask for them 800, 600. It doesn't matter, but that's just a good size to export out and to work in. I like to work in pixels. I'm used to reading things in pixels when I'm working on a screen, so I'm going to keep it in pixels. So I'm 800 by 600 pixels, seeing things in pixel format. My color mode, if your advanced isn't showing, you have the advanced tab that will drop down. Color mode, I am going to work in RGB. My raster effects, so if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to use the medium 150 ppi. In Photoshop, it's DPI, dots per inch, pixels per inch. But 150, the medium, that's a good size. And when we export out, that I think there was confusion. I put an announcement up there. Should it be 72 DPI or 150 DPI? I suggest 150. I think when they wrote it, they thought 72. The files, to keep the file size smaller. 150 file size at 800 by 600 canvas size or artboard size, as they call them. In Illustrator, they're called artboards. In Photoshop, they call them canvases. But our size of 800 by 600, 150 ppi is a good way to work. So if you see that, that's where I'll start with that. There are templates for doing different things. You can check out some of the templates here. I'm not going to go through them now, but you got some film and some other different ones in here. CD cases, stationery, t-shirt. So take some time, explore and see what these are. Open them up and check them out to see what they're offering. And you might, just to be aware of what they are. Then you may not need them right now, but in the future, something comes up. Oh yeah, they have those templates in Illustrator. I can use that. So take a look at those. But for right now, I'm going to go with this, my test one. My size 800 by 600 pixels. I am going to be working in the landscape format again. Coming back from that video background that I work things that are more horizontal in the format in this. So get started. Here's our interface. Open up. I got my screen size to move around in the document. We have down here. We can resize using the artboard. We could resize it down here to whatever size. Right now it's 120. If I want to bring it down to 100%, I can resize there. Another quick way to resize if you're working is to use your control or command, depending on what you're on, a PC or a Mac. For control PC, command Mac, and your negative sign or your plus sign. So if you hold those down, and this works for Photoshop also. So it's a quick way to zoom in and out while you're working in there. But if not, if you want to hit an exact percentage, you want to go right to 50%, 100%, depending on what you're working on, you can get it from right there. Here's our tools. These are the tools of Illustrator located here on the left-hand side. You know what? I'm going to reset my window. So we have our workspace, just so we're consistent. I have a workspace, essentials, and I'm going to reset my essentials. So if anything new that I've adjusted, you can adjust it and it will stay to it, but I'm going to reset it. And I lost some tools here that I use once in a while that I've docked out there. But right now I'm going to start from new. So we have our tools here. Tonight, I'm not going to go through all the tools of Illustrator. I want you to watch those videos that I pointed out on lynda.com, but I'm going to show you some of the basic tools and some basic workings within the program. Two main tools you're going to be using throughout your time using Illustrator is your selection tool. And get used to knowing what the quick key for that is. The quick key for that is the letter V as in Victor. So you see or scroll over there, you can see that. This is going to be your main selection tool, and this is our direct selection tool. So when we want to manipulate each of the different points in the vector world, you'll be using that that direct selection tool. So these two are the main ones there. The pen tool, we'll get into using that. Your type. We have a lasso to select. And then we have our shapes. So I think the default shape would be the rectangle if you're not seeing it. Wherever you see a little triangle to the lower right there, if you haven't used the Adobe products, but this is similar with all the Adobe products, is that they're telling us that there's other tools nested within this main tool or default tool. So we have group selection tool, or we have the direct selection tool located here. In our type tool, we have our type in an area, type along a path, type vertical, type area vertical, and type vertical on a path. So, and we're going to get into all these different, using these different tools within the different learning plans. We'll explore them. We're not going to do them all at once. So we'll learn them. Our brush tool, a pencil tool, a blob brush tool, which we'll get into, an eraser. And things erase a little differently than they do in Photoshop, and you'll get used to working with that. Sorry about that. Telephone ringing. Rotate tool, scale tool, and a lot of these things will come in. Our gradient tool, slicing and dividing tool, shape builder tool. So we got all the different tools in here, and we'll get into them. So the main ones we'll be working with probably now are going to be our selection tool, direct selection tool, probably the eyedropper if you want to pick some color, the hand. That's to move around your canvas. If you're zoomed up, you can always use your space bar. I've touched my space bar, it brings up the hand icon. There's nowhere really to move now, but I can move my artboard around. Again, this is what we call our artboard. This is our shape fill, and this is our stroke fill. And I'm going to get into that in a moment. But vector art, we have shapes and strokes. Shapes is our main inside fill, the body of our shapes, and the stroke is more the outline that appears around the shape. So we'll take a look at how that works. So we have to adjust those colors here. We also have those up here. Stroke, we have tool sets up here that we could use, and as we're using the tools and learning them, they'll become more evident in what they're about. But we will have tool options along the top here, and then we have certain tools or windows of things that we need that we can dock along the side here that we can access. So this is going to be my color, and I can dock this in here. Of my swatches, different brushes, and then they're grouped together. So we have the swatches here. These are my color guides. We'll get into using these a little more in future learning plans. This learning plan we're using symbols, so I have our symbols there. So that's a symbol. Different brushes we could use, and then different swatches that we could use and save off in there. So our different strokes, when we're working on that, the appearance or gradient, transparency one. And you can see that I have these tabs here, and these ones are linked together within this grouping. So as I open this up, I have the different groupings there. I should have my gradient, transparency, and the stroke are in there. Transparency, another feature that if you worked with Photoshop before, I'm going to refer back to Photoshop. Thinking most people that are using Illustrator have used Photoshop, but if you haven't, that's no problem either. We have the layers, so we can create layers and work in layers in Photoshop. I mean, in Illustrator, we'll have add a new layer, create a new layer here. So you can create as many layers. When you select the layer, that's the layer you're working on, and the colors will show up of your strokes and outlines will be in these colors here. So we have that's basic overwriting tool. Again, take a look at the lynda.com video. They'll go into a lot more detail than what I'm going to probably go through this evening. I just want to touch over some of the basic things and then go. So here is the rectangle tool. We're going to start off and I'm going to draw a basic shape and just get a little idea of the vector art. So I'll start with my rectangle tool. With that selected, what I'm going to do is come over here and draw. Before I do that, I want to point out some things. What this is telling me before I draw is that the body of my rectangle is going to be white. And I know that's the body. It's called the fill. So if I scroll over that, you see it says fill. And the stroke, the outside of my rectangle, is going to be black. So just so we have a little difference in there, I'm going to come in there and pick red for the inside, just so we have something against my white board. So now that I changed that, and I went up here, and I picked this from these swatches here, and picked it. So now I'm going to have a red rectangle and a black stroke around it. So as I draw out, I'm holding my mouse down and drawing out a rectangle. And I've drawn a rectangle, and it's hard to see because the layer I'm working on has a green outline indicator. So it's showing me that it's green. So if I want to change this or anything, I would switch over to my selection tool. And if I select anywhere outside of my object, and this is what my object looks like now. It has the red fill with the black outline. And so again, going back to my rectangle tool, if I want to create a perfect square, I hold the shift key and I can draw a perfect square as I'm drawing out. So depending on what size, if I wanted to draw a perfect square coming out from the center of where I'm going to draw, I'm holding the shift and the option key on the Mac and the shift and the alt key on the PC. So we're drawing there. So that's how we could draw our rectangles. Illustrator does kind of group your image together. It's not a free shape in there. So I could draw another rectangle right on top of this and it won't affect the bottom rectangle. So I could draw another one right there. And there's still two separate pieces of artwork. So to show you that, I can select here and move that away and move that around. Once it is selected, I can change this, and this is the nice part of working in vector art. You know, if we're doing this in raster art, we can make it bigger, smaller, and it still retains the quality. It loses none of the resolution. The other nice thing to look at is I put that stroke on there. If I select it, I need to select it first, and it's selected, and it's telling me in my stroke that I'm using a 1-point stroke. I can increase the size of that stroke. The stroke is that outline, and I can make that a 4-point stroke. So we can see now that line is thicker than the 1-point stroke of the other ones I drew. And then we can manipulate the colors of our shapes. So if I didn't like the black and the red, I could come back to my fill areas here. One way to do it, there's multiple ways, and with a lot of the Adobe programs, there's multiple ways to do the same thing. But if I want to change this to a blue, I could double click this and then bring up my color picker, come to my blue, and it's showing me that it's going to change it to this color. Yeah, we'll just go there just to speed it up. Go blue, say okay, and now it's blue. We wanted to change my stroke outline to another color. I'll select my stroke here, You double click that to bring it up. And say if I want to turn that green. I want to make sure I select it. I want to see that it changes up on the top here. So if I change that, it turns green. Now I have a green stroke around there. With this selected, and as I go over here, see if I go a little further, and I'm using right now to do this selecting, I am using my selection tool, which is this one here, and I selected. And if I just touch the corner of this box here, I selected both of these boxes. So whatever I change, and it's confused here because it's not sure, is the fill supposed to be blue or supposed to be red? So it's telling me there, but if I did change that color right now, it's going to change them both. So if I change the fill to a pink, it changes them both to a pink. Change the stroke to a red, whatever, it's going to change them both. And then to deselect, to see, you just click anywhere outside of your selected area. So that is one way. If I didn't want to have a stroke at all around it, if I just wanted the pure shape without an outline, we have this none icon. And with this one being in the front, so by clicking on these, it tells me which one I am going to affect. So with this clicked, not double click, but just clicked once, it's showing me that I'm going to be working with the fill color. And I can come pick my fill color over here. Or I could come up here and pick my fill color. So like I said, you can pick them from multiple places. Go here, pick them. So you can look around and see, but because that is in the front, that's what I'm changing. Now, if I switch this way, now I'm changing my stroke color. So my stroke color here is changing as I'm using my space bar to move there. My stroke color is changing there, but it has to be selected. So now if I'm selecting these colors and this is changing, but it's not changing on my rectangle until I select it again. And what I was pointing out earlier, if I just went over here just this little bit and I just nicked the corner of this rectangle, I selected them both. So you don't need to select the whole rectangle. If you just go like this, then you select that rectangle. So you want to see what you're selecting. If I wanted just this box, I could just do there. It's selected. So that's kind of the basics working with the full shapes. And again, you're seeing that I could change it. I can rotate this. Scale it. If I scale it without holding the shift key, I can scale it any way I want. If I hold the shift key, it will retain the proportions that it's in. So then it's staying as a diamond there. You can do it. If we look at this, we could see the dots, anchor points that make up these and these lines in between those anchor points. So what I'm going to do is come here and put a no there. And we can kind of see this outline. And you know what? The green's a hard color to see, so I'll show you how we can change that color. So right now I'm working on this green. I double click on this. Let's see, double click here. I double clicked right on the layer there. And then I can come here and I'll pick like red or something that we can see better. And say, okay, here. So now my outside line is a darker red. But we can see those points. And this is where, Illustrator gets fun. You can manipulate the shape within those points. So to do that, then I would use my direct selection tool. So my selection tool selects the whole shape, the whole outline. Then you can get in and start manipulating these inner points and start shaping your things. Getting a little ahead, but kind of neat stuff to see. So now that I've come in here, actually there's just the four corners of this shape that make it up. So if I select on it, I can take that point and I can move it around. So I can move that one point there. I can change a point. I can select it and put, we call it convert to anchor points, and it puts the Bezier handles on there. And by holding the Option key, I can shape this there. So again, I'm not going to go too far into this right now. But this is, one of the fun parts of working with Illustrator, where you can start shaping your objects. Select that point, put that on there, and now you can shape one going this way. If I want to just move one handle, I'll hold my Option or Alt key, and you can shape out that way. So that rectangle, turned into this shape using there. And there's going to be a lot of other things that we're going to see that we can do. But that's kind of the fun part of getting started and working with shapes. So experiment with that. Take a look at the lynda.com videos to move around there. But the way I did this is I selected a point, and sometimes you may find out you have more than one point selected and you move the whole shape around, or I selected multiple points. To deselect the points, what I do is just select outside of the object and then come back and look for the point that I want to manipulate. So I want to manipulate this point. And right now, because it started as a square, that point only has these right angles, or it doesn't have what we call, these are the Bezier handles that come out that allows me to manipulate these shapes. So to get those handles, I would select that point and come to this tool. Now that I'm working in this mode, my options up here have changed, and I want to use the Convert Selected Anchor Points to Smooth. So that's a quick way of doing it. And again, when I move this handle, you see both sides of the handle are moving, this side and this side. So if I want to move just one side, I'll hold the Alt key, and I can just move the one side. And I would select this, the handle on that, hold the Alt or Option key. Oh, gotta make sure I grab it. And what I did is I grabbed it after I started moving and I hit the Option key. So what I'm gonna do is Command Z, I duplicated it. So you have to be careful with that. Hold the Option key, you get that little plus sign, and then it should be free to use the two sides until you come back to it again. When you deselect, you might have to go back and hit it again, but I grabbed the wrong one. So you could move your objects around, shape them to where you want, and have a lot of fun with it. Once you get comfortable using those Bezier handles on there. So I started using this to move around my artboard again. I'm holding the space bar to get that hand. Come in here. If I want to zoom out quickly, I'm going to do Command negative, zoom out, and reposition. To delete things, I just come back up to my selection tool, select all of what I've been working on, everything selected, delete, and then got a fresh canvas to start with. So that's a little introduction. I mean, again, there's going to be a lot. I mean, it is a robust program, as I like to say. There's a lot to learn in it, and different people use different aspects of it. We do have along the top here saving, so probably a good idea before I start. And what I did there is do a file save as. So I want to save this. Find where you're going to save it. So I'll go to my folder where I'm going to save it, and I'll put it in my class folder. New one for LP1, and I'll call this my test one. Now it says test 01 because I named it when I started it. I usually don't do that there, but it'll be a .ai file that we're saving. So I'll save that, and this comes up, and we want to Illustrator CS6. If you're working with CS6, hopefully, CS5 would work for the class, but we can do that. All these default ones that come up, 100%. That's all good. So I'll just hit OK on that. So now it's saved. It tells me the name there, .ai. It's saved. I know where it's saved. So the first assessment that we're going to work with LP1 are working with symbols. And symbols are pre-built objects in Illustrator that you can place on your artboard to create different images. So I'm going to show you how to work with the symbols and how to create your own symbol. But I would watch, I think it's chapter 16 in the CS6 one and chapter 13 in, let me just double check that. Come on today. Okay. So CS6 is chapter 13 and chapter 16 in the CS5. So either one of those ones are a good introduction to symbols. Some of the students in the discussion also put some good introduction to symbols. This one on Adobe TV was one from the discussion. So there's lots of different places to learn if you don't have the lynda.com. But symbols will be here. If you're not seeing it on the side here, what I am working in the window workspace. Let's come back here. I'm working in my workspace essentials, and I reset it. So yours should look like mine. If you scroll along here, you can see what it says: our color guide, swatches, our brushes, and then our symbols. So if I click on the symbols, it will come out to the side here. And I have these few symbols here. I'm not sure what your default symbols are showing up there. I don't think these are them. Let me see if I got. And what I have here, this all these menus for each of these have their own separate menus of things you can do. I can open the symbol library, or I can save the symbol library that I make. But the symbol library, these are all the symbols that you have access to that come preloaded with Illustrator. So you got 3D symbols, arrows, artistic, celebration, charts. You have all the different symbols that you could use there, and there's also user-defined ones, and those are symbols that you make, and you can save symbols if you're going to create your own symbols of objects or images that you want to reuse later. So you would have that in there. And then if you have to go and find symbols from another library, you can find it there. But there's a lot in here you could use, and I'm going to show us another way to access that than here. You can access it from here. So what I did to get this, I clicked in this upper right. You can see those little lines with the arrow, open symbol library. So I can click on any of these, and it's going to open up the symbol library. I can move that around. So I have my 3D symbols. And as I click on them, it adds them to my library that I have within my document that I'm working on currently. So I can click on these, and it's adding these to here to see them. Now that this is open, another way to do it, I'll show you a second way. Like I said, in all these programs, there's more than one way to do something. So I'm going to close this for a second. Another way to get to our symbol library is right down here. Is that we have our symbol libraries menu. So I can click on this and pick up artistic textures. So I have those, and then I could use these arrows here and scroll through. I see celebration, charts, communication, dot patterns. And so these are all the choices you have with all your different symbols. So these are on the grind pack. So I'm working my way down this list by using these arrows. So it's a visual way to sort through to see what you have. And, I'm only seeing the part of it. You want to open this bigger. You can see everything that's in the different symbols. So that's showing you the symbols you have access to use the symbols. Let's go to my blobs. Here, if I click it there, it puts it in there. I can keep both these windows open if I want. Just move that to the side. I'll move this over. Now I want to put the symbols out onto the stage or onto the artboard. So what I'm going to do is pull this out here. And what we call this, the symbol is the main artwork. When they appear out on the artboard, we call them an instance of that symbol. It's kind of flash terminology that we use with that. The symbol is something that's created, and then it can be reused. And one good thing about it is it's not the vector. When you do draw in vectors, it does take a lot of memory, mathematics to figure things out. In this case, it only has to, I can have tons of these on here, and it's only going to be reading what it takes to create one of them. So you can use a lot of different artwork and only changing one instance of it. So I have it out here. Now that it's on the board, I can scale it, rotate it, position things. I can move them around to whatever I want, and the thing. So you can manipulate these however you want once they're out here. If I want to change the color of them, I can double click on it out here. And you're about to edit this symbol definition. Any edits to symbol will be applied to all of its instances. So I'm going to say OK on that. So what that's telling me is I changed it. Now I went inside. So I'm going to show you this. We call this an isolation mode. It brought up this yellow bar, brought up this arrow, grind, vector, pack, nen. So it's telling me that I'm inside of this symbol. And I want to change that symbol, that spot, to red. I'm going to go here, or I'm going to see if I go here. And if I pick red, then it changes it to the red color. Now if I go back out, so I was able to go in there and change it. And what it did, it changed it as it appears in my library. So now I'm bringing it out, and these symbols all change. So this symbol is linked to what's coming out of my library. So that's an advantage and disadvantage. So if I wanted to change something, if I wanted to have a black symbol in my library and a red one, what I could do is bring a symbol out, and then I will unlink it from my library. So break the link to the symbol is this icon at the bottom of our symbol window. So with that break the link to symbol, I click that, and now it's independent of this symbol. So now I can go inside of this. This area is selected. Just select all of this and make it black. And now I have the black one. Now I want to go back out. If I double click here, I'm back out the surface. Now I still have my red symbol, and that's here. And I pull this out, and every time I bring it out, it's going to be red. But let's say I ever want to bring this one back into my library. So I kind of created a new one by turning it back to black. But it's new compared to what's there. So what I would do with this, select this and drag that back to my symbol library. And you see I have that plus sign. So that's saying I'm adding this new shape, this new colored shape. It's this same shape, new color to it, adding it to my library. And as I let go, I'm going to get this dialog box, new symbol. So give it a name. So I'm going to call my black splat. Type movie clip. Now these come from Flash symbols, and movie clips are Flash terminology that work with. We're not working with Flash or movie clips, so I'm just going to call it a graphic. I just like doing it that way, so I go graphic. And then I usually don't click these. I always keep my registration to the center. You start working with certain programming, you might want things registered upper left, but I'm going to keep my registration to the center, but I can change it by clicking on these different areas of the box. A lot of programming is done from the upper left corner, but for just visual artwork, I like having my registration in the center. So with that, I hit OK, and now I have a new black symbol. So now every time I bring this one out, it's black. So you could create your own shapes, your own symbols, build shapes if you play around with the shape tools and build something, and then you can drag it into the symbol library, create your own shape. And then if you want to keep this, like for these, say I don't want, I just want to keep these shapes right here. I can select, I'm going to hold my command key or control and select these different ones that I put into my library, and I'm going to delete them. Or not to delete there. I'm going to delete. I have to hit the trash can here. Delete symbol. Delete selected symbols, and I'll say yes. It's not deleting them from my whole library. It's just deleting them from my my project, the project I'm working on currently, library. And if I like this group of symbols that I put together, you know, and you make some new ones and you change the colors, or um, you know, I can get into grouping things here. So let's say I take this one and I want to make a big splash, and I'll take this black one there, and I'll arrange and send it to the back. And I have these things going on, and then I'll take all of these, and this is just a trick. I'm getting a little ahead. I'm not going to go too far explaining this, but I'm going to go to my object, and I'm going to group this object. What I first need to do, I can't group them because they're symbols, so I'm going to break the link. Then that's why it wouldn't let me group it right there. So I needed to break the link, so now they're not attached to the symbols in there. I come out here, object group. So now when I select this, it's one group. It moves as a whole. I could still go inside and manipulate and change things, but right now it's a whole. I could take this whole and call it my large splat. Again, I'll make it a graphic, change there, and say OK. So now I have this larger splat that's in here. But the key thing was I did need to break that link to create this new one, because you can't make a symbol within a symbol. So look at those videos on the symbols. Another cool tool with the symbols. Let's see, we have the symbol sprayer, which is located over here, in here. In this selection here, I'm going to come up here. My symbol sprayer is here. That's how big it is right now. Whenever you're working with brushes in Illustrator or Photoshop, if you want to make them bigger or smaller while you're working with them, I am using the bracket keys that are to the right of the P key, the letter P, the two bracket keys in between the letter P and the backslash or key. So I'm going, making my size, and then I can take that and hold down and spray out. So because that symbol is selected, I'm spraying with black. Now I could deselect here, come back and select that symbol, select here. Now I can spray my red ones on top of there. And because this is still selected, I still have this box, I haven't deselected, it's adding to this overall shape that I'm creating. Now if I want to start manipulating that shape, I have to go back to my selection tool, and I can change this shape, and it's moving that whole spray there. So now we're getting a big mess going on. The link in, I think they explained it on the CS5, but there is a good link in here. This link here, how to create your own symbols in Illustrator, it's CS5, but it talks about the sprayer tool. So that one is in there also, and that I think is, oh, not that one, sorry. Let's just open that one up. Again, it'll take a little more in depth today. We're coming up to about the hour time frame, which I was kind of go with today. I just wanted to get you started, get excited about it. It is a fun program. I think once you get working with it, you a little bit of a learning curve there, but you will get used to working with it there. So this how to use symbols in Adobe Illustrator, 5 minutes, and that's a good one. It talks about the sprayer tool and things you can do with that. So take a look at that. That was this number 11 link. Okay, well, that's kind of where we are today. One other thing I want to show us. Yep, that was it. So I like this. I don't know why I would like this, but I have this mess, and then this is where we're going to create a scene with our symbols. Be sure to read the assessment. I always want to make sure you point out that you're going to read. I'm clicking on here now. Read the assessment. Always look at the scoring guide. because that's what I need to use. So between the directions and the scoring guide is what you'll be scored on for what you're doing. Use at least 20 symbols, utilize the symbols, copy, scale them, place the symbols, beneath the others, create a new symbol, utilize the symbol sprayer tool, and your composition has a cohesive theme. So those are the things that you'll be graded on, following the directions. Now it does say save as a 172 JPEG file. That's what I'm going to show us right now. You can't save a JPEG. You need to export as a JPEG. And I'm going to suggest and push towards doing 150 DPI. Now, the 72, when they wrote this scoring guide, they wanted to keep file sizes smaller, but 150 is not too much larger for what we're doing. So coming back to here. One other thing I was going to point out in the doc sharing. I think I pointed out in the other video, but I'll go real quick. There are examples of what students did this fall of their symbol things. They're not all perfect, but you get an idea of what some other students have done with the symbols. You can see that, and also for the next 4 learning plans, there are examples of those of their work. So coming back to here. Say I like this. One of the things to say, one thing's in front of our, this red is really prominent here. I'll show you what I did real quick earlier. You can arrange, so I can go right click. Oh, let's see. Come here, select it. So with my selection tool selected, I'm going to right click on there and then go to arrange, and then I can change where I want this on this image. So I'm going to send, and all this is happening on one layer, but if I want to send that to the back of the layer, I can press it so it goes backwards. I'm not going to try to make sense of this design right now. Okay, so I have this design and I want to export it as a JPEG. So what I would do is do a file save. So I'm saving it. I have it. It's already named. I know where I'm saving it. I set that up already. Now, so it's saved as an AI file. So when I open up again, an AI being Adobe Illustrator, it's going to save it as an AI file. And I want to export a JPEG from here. So what I'm going to do is do File, Export. So at File, Export, click that. And what I want to do it, what format, PNG, JPEG. I actually like PNGs, but JPEGs will work. So I'm going to the format here, dropping down to the JPEG here. So you can see the different choices you have to export to: a Flash SWF, JPEG, Photoshop, PSD. PNGs work good if you want to do art that has transparency to them. When you do a JPEG, it's always going to place a white background behind it. PNGs, you can set it to a transparency. I like that. TIFF, Target, you can also, but let's go JPEG. So change that. Then for our naming convention, I think I mentioned this, but what I'll just do it here since we're LP1 is what learning plan we're working on. I'm gonna do my last name Ward, first name Tom, underscore symbols. Give you a little description of what the assessment is. So what learning plan, your name, last name, first name, and a description of the assessment. In this case, it's working with symbols. So I'll export it as that. And I'll click Use Artboard, All. Then I'll hit Export here. Then I'll look at what are my choices, my JPEG options. I want it to RGB. I'm going to make it the highest. Photoshop, the highest quality, you can do 12. For Illustrator, right now it's 10. So I want it to be the maximum quality. Compression, I want baseline standard. Resolution, and this is where default may be at 72, but this is where I want you to change it to 150 pixels per inch. And then anti-aliasing, art optimize. So optimize our art. You can embed the ICC profile. That's not going to be too critical for us right now. If you're working with different printers or different artists within video games, you want to make sure you're all working in the same sRGB or whatever profile of RGB you're working with. But we could keep that in there, keep it checked. So if you work with these things, and I access this by going through export and hit OK. Things for a second. Come to that JPEG. It should save it right where your file was saved. So I'm going to double check that. LP1 folder I made, and there's the JPEG I just made. Open that up. Yeah, there we go. So it does do that. I will put a link up to creating what we call a clipping mask. It's getting a little more advanced, but if I did have part of my artwork sticking out, there's a way we can make the JPEG that keeps this stuff inside. And it gets a little more advanced, but I'll put a link to a video that I created to show us how we can crop that part of it out. So we're just seeing what's on our artboard. Getting a little ahead, but if that happens, don't worry about it. We will learn how to do that. So did it lose? What happened to that? There we go. So you guys with me? Anybody have any questions? Okay. Okay, Glenn, and if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me through email. You have my work number. If you send it to me, it goes right to my email. You leave me a voicemail if it's easier for you to talk. So hopefully, good. Okay, hopefully that was helpful.
It was. Nice job.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to finish up. If anyone doesn't have any questions, I'm going to sign off. Angela, Jake, do you have anything? You can type in if you don't have a microphone working, or
no.
Okay, is that Jake?
I don't have any questions, so
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for stopping by. I'm going to do it next week also, and I'll just do the similar thing. There is next week. There's a building a character tutorial that I'll go through in there. So it's online there. You can do it yourself, or I'll just go through it on here too, just to show you. Sometimes when we did it in class, some students were having problems, reading it and how it works. So that's what I'm going to hopefully do here and be able to answer any questions.
Did you record this as well so we can watch it again, or no?
Yeah, I did record it. So it's going to be large. It's going to take me a little bit to compress it down, and I'll get it up hopefully by tomorrow.
All right.
Yeah, it was an hour long, so I did record it. Angela, did you have any questions? Okay.
Okay, Tom.
Well,
thanks a lot.
Right. Yep, sure. Like I said, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to end the meeting now. Then.
Okay. See you next week.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.